everybody. How you doing? I'm Matthew Jordan Smith. I'm super happy to be here. We have a lot to go over. So right away, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right into this and use our time wisely and give you guys plenty of time for questions at the end. Please save your questions at the end. You can put them in the chat, but please save them for the end or remember them anyway so we can go over those things as we get going. I'll share my screen now and let's get this baby rocking and rolling here. All right, first again, I'm Matthew Jordan Smith. Welcome to these great weekend of fun and tons of information, training. We're up to the Visual Storytelling Conference. This is all about how to make magical photographs using one light. There's a lot to go over. And please pay attention. Feel free to ask questions at the end. Don't forget to make sure you fill out the survey at the end as well. We definitely want your feedback. If you hear me take a pause, I'm taking my sip of my green tea. I am based in Tokyo. I've been here almost 6 years now. Absolutely love it. Started my career in New York City, and for the most part, I've done a lot of different types of assignments. And I start off doing just fashion beauty, but I'm known for shooting celebrities. And that world's taken me all over the place with a lot of different types of clients. I did probably one of my most interesting jobs last year during the summer. I got hired by the IOC for an assignment they've never given before. They assigned me to live in the Olympic Village, something that was kind of forbidden in the past, never happened ever. They assigned me to live in the village with all the athletes for the entire Olympic Games for like a whole month. And that was a super amazing, incredible assignment. But I'm known for doing celebrities. This is the world where I spend most of my time in, even here in Japan. And it's a great career. So I'm always doing different types of things, a lot of advertising over the years. It's been 30 plus years of shooting. And I've really gotten to know lighting very, very well. So we'll spend a lot of time diving into that and taking it apart so you can have better images and play around, hopefully starting today or beginning of your week. My advertising jobs run the gamut from all types of things I never believed I'd ever get before. I always get these weird assignments throughout the year. Like even doing the job for the IOC last year, I don't shoot sports at all. I never thought I'd get a call from the IOC about doing something, but you never know what happens when you just put your work out there and things just happen. Do a lot of movie posters. Actually, I'm doing a job next month back in LA, and I'm shooting the author of who wrote this book, Disappearing Acts. A lot of her books get turned into movies, and it's kind of funny that now I've been shooting her over 20 odd years. And it began by shooting one of the movies posters and formed this relationship, and now I've been shooting her forever. I've been shooting Tyra since the mid 90s also. Shot her easily 100 times. I'm not kidding, over the decades. And these clients like me, a lot of them like me because of my use of light. So today it's going to be all about that. So let's talk about what you're going to learn today. You're going to go over different techniques to use one light. We're only going to talk about using one light today. That's it. And we'll learn how to create great pictures using one light. We'll also talk about the different tools that I use and how you can use them as well in your photography. And we'll really talk about how to be consistent with your photography lighting, because that's, I think, the key for having a great career is being able to create consistent images where you put your look, your thumbprint on all your images. That's really key. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about that as well throughout this entire process. So as you look at these images, I'm starting showing images now. I want you to always look at the image and understand that everything I'm going to show you today and talk about, it is done with one light. And some images will look like they're not done with one light. They look like they're multiple lights, but they are not. Everything is shot with one light, including these two images of Sam Jackson, who I've shot over the decades, as you can tell. The first image, and one on the other side. So it's great being a photographer and having clients who refer you over and over and over again. Even when I first moved here, people right away started noticing my lighting. And when I think about my career, even though I can use, every type of light available today, very often I am still shooting a lot of images with one light. So when I thought about that, I'm like, let me just break this down and talk about the importance of really mastering one light and using that one light to create great images. So again, I use not just one type of light, I use multiple types of lights. And by types of lights, I mean HMI, strobe light, LEDs, you name it. I run the gamut of using different types of lights depending on the assignment. And once you understand that, I think it opens up a door for what you can do for your look, for your assignment. We think, I know a lot of photographers think, I just need, just one more light or one more lens or we just want gear. I get that because I'm that way too. I love my toys. But I think one of the first lessons I ever learned was I was a photo assistant a long time ago in New York, and the photographer I trained with first told me, put all the other stuff away and just learn how to use one light first. And at the time, that didn't make sense to me. It does now. So today I want to hammer that home, the importance of learning how to really master one light. So again, all these images, all shot with different types of lights. You've just seen a range of different images, and most shot with a different type of light throughout all those images I've just shown. But they're all one light at a time. And that's really cool to really understand what you can do. Okay, now let's take it a little slower now and go through these images one by one. Everything you're about to see, everything has one thing in common. So this light is one light again. And if you look at the light and take it apart, or this image and take it apart, it looks like there's more because you see her hair is lit. So it looks like, there's a hair light. Then you see this light in her eye. Then you see this gel. But this is all only one light. So the light is behind the model, lighting her hair. I have my assistant in front of her. We have a mirror, simple like mirror you can get at any pharmacy anywhere in the world, or drugstore anywhere in the world. And we put a gel over the entire mirror, except for one little slit where it's totally clean. And that's the light that's coming on her eye. And the rest is just that gel covering the rest of her body. It's one light. Super simple, easy to do. Once you understand how to really read that light, I'll talk about that a lot today. Reading light, seeing light is a big deal. So I want to spend a lot of time going over that in depth. This is an assignment I did a couple of years ago in Shanghai, shooting a famous actress, and this is her basically like having an Oscar there, and we're using one light again to create this mood. I want to talk about that also. I think having a mood in your images is great as well. For those who've never used a light before, one thing that you get by understanding light is you get to control the mood of your images. If you're shooting with natural light all the time, you're dealing with whatever you get. Right now in Tokyo, it's raining this morning. It's early morning for me, and it's raining. If I want to shoot today, I'm stuck with this rainy, overcast, dreary looking day. However, with my light, I can do anything I want to do. I don't care if it's raining or whatever. I can create the mood, which gives you control over the mood that your clients feel. Think about that. You're not only a photographer, you have the ability to change how people feel in terms of their mood by the look of your lighting. This is a job I did, again, that same job in China. I'm going over Beijing and Shanghai. I was assigned to shoot 75 directors and actors there. Kind of intimidating to be all these famous directors, but they also got to know me and really appreciate my photography based on the lighting and how I was using lighting to light them. It's actually a fun assignment. So here's something people never see me do. A still life image. And it's done with one light. Just playing around. I'm always experimenting. Let me just grab a little of my green tea here because I think my voice needs it already. And what's so cool about light, you learn how to use it, and you learn how to use it in terms of taking light away and create this mood and this feeling. I love shooting backlit, like this image is, and creating moods with light. And it's so much fun to do once you understand how to play with light. Even this one light. My personal work, also, this is part of my artwork. And again, one simple light. And one thing that happens once you release yourself from being tied to all the gear and in that space, it opens the door creatively for you to do different things. This is Muhammad Ali's daughter, Layla Ali, and I had a picture in my space like this, and she walks. It's like, oh my God, I love that picture. I want to do one of those. I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. And she was shocked to see the set because it looks complicated. And you see the image, but it's really just one simple light. And this is more my classic look of using one light. You can tell this one's just like one simple light. There's a little sun popping through the window and giving a little backlight there, but the light on her is one simple light. And I love shooting this way. And I shot this way since the start of my career. Once you figure out a look, you don't have to really change it that much. As a matter of fact, it's better when you don't, so you don't confuse your clients when they see your work. They see your fingerprint of you having this look, and they hire you for that. It's great to know everything, but you don't need to use everything. Use what you do best. This is where I started my career doing beauty, and I still do this a lot. I started in fashion beauty, doing a lot of cosmetic work and things around that nature. And it's still like my roots, and I still love doing it a lot. This is probably what got me known in photography, doing a lot of covers for magazines. Magazines are still big here in Japan. They were big in the States at one point. And I started my career by shooting a lot of editorial for magazines. Now, all those pictures you've just seen are all shot with one light. You now get that we're only doing with one light, but now let's go into how you can make magical pictures using one light. So this is what it looks like on a normal set, a lot of gear. And I will say that there are a lot of mini shoots I do where there is a lot of gear. This is 2 different shoots I've done with a lot of different pro photo strobe gear. Pro photos are strobes that I use a lot throughout my career, but I use a lot of different types of lights as well. Today we'll take all this gear away, umbrellas, strobes, packs, all that stuff away, and just deal with one simple light at a time. So you're in the Visual Storytelling Conference. I'm Matthew Jordan Smith. For those who are just getting here or coming in late, we're talking about how to make magical photographs using one light. Super happy you are all here wherever you are from. So this is going to start with step 1. Step 1, you've got to really train your eye by studying natural light. And people always look at me a little weird when I say that, because we see light all the time. I mean, as you're going about your day, you're out and about, you're seeing light. We've always seen light. But for a photographer, it's a little different. We have to take it apart, start seeing it in the ways that you don't normally see light. This is a shoot that I did, and the shoot was over. We finished the job, we were shooting in the studio. At the end of the day, the light came in the room, the sunlight came in the room, and the model was about to get undressed, take her makeup off. I'm like, no, stop, wait, come to about here by the window. It was just a sliver of light. It came to the window, it's probably there for like maybe 10 minutes. I shot this image in like 5 minutes and then it was gone. So you gotta learn to recognize light when it comes, because it's not there all the time. That sun's moving constantly throughout the day. And once you learn to see when the light's beautiful and recognize when it's not, it opens up a door for you. So here's a shot of Christian Slater. We're in New York, and look at the light on him. So it's really harsh coming through the window right now. And I want you to really pay attention to the shadow side of his face and how uneven that light is. Look at the shadows on his right side, how it's, you know, hitting his suit. How it's that's harsh light. So you need to recognize light and how it changes throughout the day. When it's good, when it's bad, when it's at its best, and learn how to use it. There are times when you'll want to do a shoot and you're like, oh well, no, this is not the time for this. And for this shoot, I did shoot him by the window, but later on, we first put him out there, I'm like, no, this is not yet the right time. So we went back to shooting more in location. Then I waited for the light to get better and went back and shot him by the window. But right now, it's just too harsh. And I think it's great to see pictures like this versus like just all the perfect images. So you can start seeing like, okay, how you need to dissect a picture and see light, because it's not easy to do, especially when the sun is at that time of day when it's really, really harsh, or when it's like I have right now, it's an overcast, rainy day, and the light is still changing. Even though it's like this soft, diffused light, the light's changing throughout the day, even on a rainy, overcast day, and it can look really bad. It can look really good on an overcast day, but that sun and the angle of the sun changes that light. So here's a shot here in Tokyo doing a sumo ceremony. And this is light that's very hard to see sometimes. It's overcast, but the light is backlit. So if you look at around his shoulders, his arms that are up, you'll see that sun coming around the back of them. He's backlit. And this is light that is very hard for you to see because you have to like be almost conscious of that light. And when you're not, you're like, oh, okay, yes, overcast, it's beautiful light. And that's not true so much. It's where's the direction of that light. Once you train yourself to see natural light and all the ways it changes, it helps you decide and make a decision on how you want to use your light. And that's when it's powerful, once you understand all the beautiful looks of light with natural light, and then how you can create your look of light in studio or wherever. This is out on the street again, and this is just that sliver of light coming in one little area. And I placed my model in that one section of light and got my shot. That light's not there. It's not staying still. It's like moving constantly. So this light was here for like an hour, and that was it. And then it's gone. So here we are on this overcast days again, like the image on the left of Zendaya. We're on the beach in California. It's like the end of the day, and that light is coming in that same direction that I love at the end of the day, and it's really, really beautiful. But it was an overcast day. So you might think like, oh yeah, the light is great everywhere and anywhere, and it's not. It's just you got to look for the light, especially on overcast days. Look where that light's coming from. It's really hard to see it on those days when it's like softer, overcast days, but you still have to look for that light. This is like, using a softbox outside. The sun gives us everything, every type of light. So this is your natural softbox, layers of clouds over the sun to give you a soft, beautiful look, soft light. The image on the right, the light is actually just coming over a building, and she's an open shade. Open shade is beautiful, beautiful light. On a harsh day, you can find open shade very easily. I don't want to shoot at like 12, 1 o'clock in direct sun. It's just too intense. However, I can find areas where like I can find a great building and find open shade and then use that light. So we're talking about using one light, and the sun is one light, one amazing source. And we learn so much by studying that one light. So step 2 is to take that knowledge you've learned by using one light and take it in your studio, in your space, in a home, and start practicing using that. So here I have a constant light. We'll talk about that pretty soon also. So this is not strobe light. This is a constant light source. And I'm trying to emulate that end of the day sunlight. I'm in a home in California, and I'm making my light look like sunlight. I love doing this. And this is how I began my career, by using this type of light, because I'll admit at first, I could not see light. It was just really hard for me to see it. And my photographer I was working with taught me how to see it and understand it. And that's what I want you guys to really understand today about how you can place your light and change your light, change the shadows. You have control over everything. That shot earlier of Christian Slater, the sun, I can't move the sun and change it. I've got to wait for it to be at the right angle. However, with my light, once I've understood how light changes by the angle of light as it changes throughout the day, I can then emulate my favorite time of day with that light, which is what I've done here, creating that end of the day sunlight. Everybody loves sunset, right? You can have your sunset any time of day you want, and that's kind of cool to be able to do. Here I am again in China shooting an assignment of this is a director, and it was an overcast day, not because of rain, because of all the pollution in Beijing at the time, and I had a light and we put it outside. This is actually strobe light. So I'm mixing strobe with the ambient inside. This is a big library, so I'm mixing this strobe light with the ambient light. So I'm opening up my shutter to allow the ambient light to fill the room and create this atmosphere. And then I'm using my strobe light outside the window. I've got my assistant outside the window, the strobe, and we lit the shot. So this is all just one light. My main light is just one light. I'm using fill light that's naturally there from these lamps here, but it's one main light that lights her. And this is my light again, trying to look like that end of the day sunlight coming through the day, through the window, when the sun's beautiful and coming down. And this is my favorite time of day, sunset. So I want to try to emulate that end of the day sunlight. So what makes light so beautiful anywhere in the world at sunset? Why do we all stop and watch a sunset? It's the sun being so low right before it sets, and it just fills the face. The shadows are minimized, and we have this great light, and we get great skin. We don't see all the pores and all the details and all the shadows when it's super high. So think about your light when you are in a studio. If you have it really high, it doesn't matter if it's softbox or whatever. If you have it really high, that light can be unflattering or not as flattering as when you bring that light a little bit lower. So it's starting to emulate the look of sun at the end of the day. And it's wonderful once you understand that you had that control of how your client looks. If they're overweight, you can make them look less overweight by having that angle of light be just right. So step 3, mastering one light first. If you have a lot of lights, that's great. I have tons of lights, but very often I'm using just one light. This is one light that I use a lot. This is a CLX10 light by Light in Motion. It's fantastic. It's a constant light source. So by constant light, I mean it's not a strobe, so it's not going to fire with a remote. It feels and looks like the sun. A lot of the images you saw earlier today, I've shot with this light. There are a lot done with strobe as well, but this is one of my tools that I use a lot. It's a constant light. I have got many types of constant lights. I started using constant lights early in my career. So here's behind the scenes. So here I have that same constant light there. It's set up. The model's about to walk onto the set. I want to emulate what is funny because right now it's pouring outside here in Tokyo. I want to create this look of being stuck in the rain. And I had a choice of different lights, strobe lights, different modifiers, but what did I want to use to create this look and have that feeling of rain and somebody being stuck in the rain? I chose that same hard light source, that constant light, to create this look. I put a black background. She's actually standing in a shower area, and we just have her being lit from our CLX10, and we are enhancing the rain by using one of my favorite tools. So I am using the shower, of course, but I'm also using On One, one of my favorite tools to use after I shoot to create more rain as well and enhance this look. But it was so much fun. And one great thing about using a constant light source, a light that comes on and stays on, is that you can see exactly what the light looks like. With strobe, it's much harder and you've got to train yourself to see that type of light. So I believe when you are first learning how to use light, or even if you have lights been using for a long time, I think it's great to start with a constant light source. That's how I was taught at the start of my career, to learn how to use a constant light first before strobe. As a matter of fact, when I first started shooting with strobe, I didn't like my images. I went to art school and we only learned how to use strobe lights and umbrellas and a softbox. That's what I learned in art school. And that was great, but I didn't like the images. I didn't know why at the time, but it was because I didn't know how to see light yet. So when I left art school and went to New York and started working as a photo assistant, that's when I learned how to start using constant light. I used a hot light back then. Today I use more lights like this, but it's a constant light source. I have a Fresno head on top and I have barn doors to control that light even more. I love using this a lot. So here's one of the older old-fashioned lights that I've started using. This is actually one of the lights I used in the very beginning of my career. This is Layla Ali again, and we're shooting, and I have a hot light, and I'm using barn doors to try to create this look and this feel of light on her. This is all natural, me using my constant light to create that look of natural light, that end of the day sunlight. I've got the light low, like the angle of light as she's laying down. I want to feel like it's raking across her like that sun at the end of the day again. And that's how I got this look. So look at the shadows part, because you'll start seeing how I use the barn doors to create this light. At the very end of the image, you can start seeing that shadowing and the sides where I'm using my barn doors to block that light. And the light is just really hitting her face and raking across her body a little bit and falling off. So the falling off part's really important also. And how do you know how the light's falling off? That's by reading the light, which we're going to go into even more detail later on. I told you about that earlier. We're going to talk about reading light. I totally believe in reading every part of the image. It's important not just to know the light, but to know the shadow part as well. So by reading the light, I want to know the light on her, like around her face. I want to know the light on her hair, around her neck, around her stomach, around her legs. I want to see how it's falling off and learn that. And when you read the light, you get to really direct that feeling. So visually, if I have it look where the light kind of just falls off gradually, my viewer's eyes will stay on her eyes. So I want that concentration of light, that I call that sweet spot. I want that concentration of light around her face, because I want the viewer to go right to her face, and you had that control with your one light. And then I use my barn doors to take the light away and keep this, of course, the shadowing around. Again, I'm gonna go back for a second. Look at that, me. I'm using the barn doors to create that light. I'm tweaking it just a little bit here and there to have control over the shadow part of my image. There's just a one open light, everything's lit. And that could look, decent possibly. But when I control the light, I'm creating also this mood throughout the image. And that is subliminal, but it sells and people get to understand, wow, this looks sexy. Now it's not just like a picture that's like lit, it has a mood to it. And you are the mood controller for the most part. You learn how to use your light to control the mood and set the mood. So let's go on set again. This is actually Miss Universe Japan. And this was a girl who had won beauty pageants. She's used to being on beauty pageants, but she wasn't used to being in front of the camera that much. She's getting better now. I shoot her quite a bit here in Tokyo. She won last year, and I'm in studio. I'm using that same light I showed you earlier, but now versus being in a location like I was when I was shooting the shower scene, I'm now in a studio and we're using this one light to light her face. Now this day I shot a lot of different types of lights. I was shooting some with strobe, some with this constant light. And I want to have that feeling and allure of the image so it stands out. Now, also, when you are thinking about your type of light, I want to digress for a second and talk about how you stand out as a photographer. If everybody is using the same type of light, all the pictures start to like blend together after a while, and you want to stand out. If you think about the light that's used the most in photography, it would probably be a softbox. It's probably the easiest modifier to use on light. It is beautiful. It's soft, it's beautiful, it's flattering. Um, However, because it is the easiest one to use, readily available, it's probably the most common modifier used out there. So the more you understand light and how to use the different types of modifiers, the modifier is the thing you put on top of your light to create the look. Um, every light has some type of modification you want to create to make that light look a certain way. There's also one other thing that we haven't talked about yet. You've been seeing it the entire time I've been talking today, is that distance of light. The distance is just as important as the modifier, because if you have this same light far away, it looks very different than how it looks right now. So once you learn how to work with your modifier that you like the best, we all like certain things, find out what you like best in terms of that modifier. It can be a softbox or an umbrella or anything, and then work with your distance and your height. You guys know by now I love that sunset look. So that means I've got to be at a certain angle. But that sun's millions of miles away. I got my light close because I'm trying to emulate that look of that sun, millions of miles away. So I got to have my smaller light source, smaller than the sun, and bring it in a place where it looks like that sunlight as well. So here I have my light. This is basically how I shoot a lot of my images. My light's very close for the most part. Not too close where it blinds the model, of course, but I want to make sure they're comfortable. And for somebody who's like uncomfortable in front of a camera, say they're blinking a lot. With strobe, sometimes they can blink a whole lot. With this type of light, I can go through and shoot any way I want to. And because it's not flickering or flashing, it's easier on them to keep their eyes open and to not be as nervous. So this is, again, more behind the scenes angle, so you can see the angle of the light on the left image where you see me. And I'm using my Nikon, I'm using my 105 lens there, I believe. I'm super tight on her, and it's being lit by that one simple light. That's it. There you see more behind the scenes, the whole team behind me, hair, makeup, stylist, client, everybody's back there doing their thing as I'm shooting to get my look. And that's the image that feels like that sun. It makes the eyes look a certain way. With strobe light, eyes look a certain way. The constant lights, they look a certain way. Once you understand that by studying different types of lights and modifiers, you have control over all that. We got a little wind on her to make her hair go back. You can see a hairstylist holding the little wind machine to blow the hair as I'm shooting, to create that look of, end of the day, wind in her hair, and get that feeling. Super simple and a lot of fun. Just one simple light. Now let's go to strobe light, because I also use a lot of strobe and have throughout my entire career. So here I am shooting a very famous director and his wife, who's one of his, she's an actress in a lot of his movies, as a matter of fact. This guy knows light, knows directing, was a lot of fun to shoot. And for this one, I had one big source of light, because I'm covering two people. I'm shooting tight, I'm shooting full body, I'm shooting a lot of people. So I needed one source I could use easily. So I'm using one big umbrella. It's a parabolic umbrella, but the light from that light is not too soft. And it still has a punch and it's controllable, but the whole set is lit with one light. Both of them, the background, this is all one light. Here I have, I'm shooting a social light here in the States, and I'm using one light again. You'll see like two lights in her eyes, but it's one light. I'm gonna show you how I do that a little bit in a second as well. But this is one main light. This is one light again as well. And this is the same type of modifier. These are actually both the same modifier. This is a beauty dish, one of my favorite modifiers that I use quite a bit for both these images. And the same thing here. This is a Zendaya in studio now. I showed you an image of her outside earlier on a beach one day, and this is another day where we're in studio. One light again, one modifier, and the light's falling off in a very subtle way. And we're all thinking about light all the time, but how light falls off is extremely important as well. Like you can see on her legs, how it falls off ever so gently, like by her feet, it's really fallen off quite a bit. And you can read that and have control of your light and how you angle your light. Again, like with like shooting outside on an overcast day, it's harder to see light with strobe light. You gotta train yourself to see strobe light. And this is why I tell a lot of my interns, assistants to start with one light first, because it's confusing when you have 2 and 3 lights and you're first starting out with light, because you can't figure out where your shadows are coming from, where the light's coming from, not having real control yet. So first, master one light. Even if you have 10 lights right now, put them all away and master one first. Play around with it in different ways and see all the things you can do with that one light. So here again is how I shoot a lot of my images over the years, over the decades, with this strobe light. Here I'm using my Pro Photo strobe light. I got a beauty dish on, and these are 2 different shoots here. And I've got my one, I have a modifier over my beauty dish. One I don't, because I have also a fill card underneath. I have a silver fill underneath. That's that little other twinkle of light you saw under the eyes. I got that fill. My light is still low in that same angle as when I'm shooting a constant light source I showed you earlier. So even though it's a different modifier, that light's still in that same kind of position. And this has been my position of light for the last 30 plus years. It hasn't changed. It's still the same. It's that same look. It's that fingerprint I talked about earlier also that you've got to have. So this is like seeing it from the other side. So here you see from her point of view, you now see that reflector underneath, get that little spark under the eyes. You can see how tight I am. You can see how that beauty dish isn't that far above my head. So it looks again like that light coming down at the end of the day, that sunlight, that angle of light, super important. Now find the angle of light that you like. And you get that by testing, by experimenting, and finding out what's the angle that you like. Because I like my light a certain way. You probably like your lights a different way. Figure out that angle of light that you like and go with that. We're in Japan shooting, so we have our socks and shoes on, socks off. You don't wear shoes on into a psych studio in Japan. So we're all with our shoes off here. So if you're curious about that, that's the reason for that. Now, this is the part that happens before you have clients in the room, before hair and makeup shows up, before there's anybody. This is you by yourself, testing, setting up, and getting control of your light. Now, we haven't talked about this part yet directly, but I want to go into that now. The reading of the light. I use a light meter. Sometimes it's old-fashioned, but I believe in having real control over every part of the image. So I want to use a light meter, so there's no guessing. Also, if I do a shot that was maybe, say, 20 years ago, and the client likes that image, and they want me to do an image like that today, I have my consistency of using a meter. I can go back and do the same thing very easily just by having a meter and knowing how to read the light and read where the light is falling away from the shot. That's equally as important to know, not just where the light is. Like a histogram will tell you where the light is. By reading your histograms, you find out where the light is. You find out if it's a great shot in terms of your exposure. But it's not really enough information, I feel, to have real control. So that's where I use my light meter. I want to know exactly where the light is, how it falls, so I can have control. Here I'm shooting super wide open. I'm shooting at 1.4. I'm focusing just on her eyes. I've got my one light again, that beauty dish. You see again under her eye, you see that little sparkle. That's that reflector again that you saw earlier, like that. That's that reflector underneath. I'm looking at the light, I'm looking at the reflector, I'm seeing how each of them are playing their part. I can feel the light on me. I think when you're shooting, it's very important for you as photographer to sit where your client's going to be and understand what that light feels like, to understand what it feels like when the strobe's going off a lot. Once you understand that, you can get images where they feel comfortable all the time. So here I am shooting 1.4 wide open, just focused on her eyes. It's that simple, beautiful light. Same setup, but there's a small tweak. I put a grid on my beauty dish. So this is super subtle, but it's there. Like look around her jawline. That light falls off. That's the grid. This is the light without the grid. So it's two different types of light, but super, super subtle. This is training your eye to see. This is strobe light, so it's hard to see strobe light, but super simple. Both these images shot, wide open. I'm both 1.4, same lens, same look, same modifier, same beauty dish. But here I just changed from having a grid on that one modifier, and here it's off. So super simple, but a small tweak. Small tweaks do make a big difference in your photography. And this is the tool that I use all the time, all the time. I am a stickler for using a light meter. I also use a color meter. This one tool is one that I've used forever. And I hear people say all the time, oh, you don't have to use a light meter. And no, you don't. You don't. However, if you want more control, if you want to really understand light, there's nothing like it. So when I shot all those directors, I used my light meter. I've been hired to shoot other directors like George Lucas. I'm using a light meter. And it was funny with all those directors I've shot over my career, they all pay attention when I pull out a light meter. I'm like, oh, you use a light meter, because in the cinema industry, all those guys are using a light meter. You go on a set, a movie set, the key grip, the gaffers, they're using a light meter. And there's no guessing. A light meter doesn't lie. It tells you everything about your light, about your shadows, about how the light's falling off. And then you learn how that light looks when it falls off a certain way. And you can create it over and over again. Here we are on set again, where I go back into this space and where I have my assistant reading the light again, the light meter. Even in terms of, this is like a shot back in 1995. This is the old group TLC. I can go back and see how I read everything. What's the light reading, the ISO, the shutter speed, the aperture. If I want to get a shot done again this year, I can look back and say, okay, I shot this at 5, 6.5, at 1/25 of a second. Easy. And create that same look. I was doing some research and found this picture that Irving Penn, one of my idols, did, and he was doing the same thing. Here he has his data sheet, shot at f/22, shutter speed 1/60th of a second. That's kind of cool to see all that information. This is how I was trained. And the photographer who trained me used to assist Irving Penn and taught me how to use, back in the day, the light meter and the data sheet. Today, you don't need a data sheet because we know all digital, but back in the day, this is how I shot all my film and documented everything that way. So when I'm by myself, before the team comes in, before the assistants come in, I'm playing with my lights and understanding everything about that control. It's super important for you to have control of your lights in every single way. You saw this shot earlier today when I first started, and it's one light. And this one light, this one modifier is lighting the background, and it's lighting Sam Jackson as well. So here's the set. We're using a big parabolic umbrella. This is the Elinchrom Para, and I can change that light where it sits in the umbrella to fall off on that background. Look at the background. This is his wife from that behind the scenes shot, and you can see how the light's falling off and hitting that background to create that look. One light, just one simple light. And once you play around and learn how to use that light to create that mood, it's so much fun. Now you can actually look at that background. You can see how it's visually falling off. You can see how it's dark around the corners there. If you look at that and then you see it right there, all one light, one light. And that changes based on where I position that light. If I bring it closer, it makes it a little smaller in that little circle of light. It's very concentrated there. If I pull it back, it makes it more open. So that distance of light is always super important. It's not just about the light and the modifier, it's that distance of light, and that height of the light makes a huge difference. You know, also it's fun to just experiment. So I want to take you guys out to what I did even last night. I'm out in Tokyo with a buddy. We're using one light and playing around, showing, you know, motion in the busy city of Tokyo, where things are always on the move and changing and playing around. And what do I have? That tool that I use, that light meter. I want to find out, okay, I'm mixing panning. So I'm panning my camera to show the motion. So I'm shooting also at slow shutter speed, and I'm doing a rear curtain sync. So I got strobe, I got panning, I've got a rear sync going on. I'm shooting like at like a fourth of a second, sometimes 1 second, and I'm trying to follow people. And at the end, the flash goes off to get that feeling. A lot of fun, a lot of fun. I'll be doing this all this week. And this is me testing before I do a shot on a model. So I had to experiment. So I'm always experimenting and playing around and playing with light. And once you learn how to do this stuff, this is now shooting at night, doing the same thing, you can get out there and create your images. So I want you guys to always understand you've got to test all the time, play around all the time. I want to stop sharing for 1 second, and I want to make sure that you guys really get to see this 1 second. I want to make sure that I want to take this down for 1 instant. There we are. So this tool that I talked about earlier, this light meter, is so important. So here's the CLX 10 that I use a lot. These are the barn doors, and they can swivel. I can take them in and out. I can move them around. And I'm always doing this on set to like really control my lights. And then with my light meter, I will read that light, and I don't take just one reading, because I want to know a couple of things. I want to know, where's the light falling around the face. So very often I'm going to read all over the face, find those readings, and then I'll go away from my client. I want to go away and find out where the light is as it falls off. Every modifier is different. It's going to fall off different. Even as you tweak your modifiers, it's going to change. This light out here is going to change. I want to know all that. I can't find that out through histograms. I can't find it out by looking at the back of my camera. This will tell me how it falls off, where the light is, where it's falling off. Maybe if it's brighter out here, I'm like, oh, it's really hot there. It's not on my client, but maybe I want that concentration on my client. I can take my light and take it down, so that light that's here comes down here. And then I can feel like, okay, now I'm controlling every aspect of the shot. That's why I use this tool a lot. Even outside, when I'm outside last night playing around with the strobes, I want to find out what the strobes are reading. Even, when I'm testing and experimenting, I want to find out all those variables so I'm not guessing. And once you're not guessing, you can recreate that image over and over and over again. You can use, guessing for sure and get a great shot. People do it all the time. But can you recreate that shot a year later? Or 2 months later, can you recreate that shot when you guessing at the shot? You got to guess all over again. And so earlier, I do a lot of celebrities. I don't have the time to guess. If I have somebody for 15 minutes, I shoot Oprah and I have 15 minutes. Or I shoot Zendaya and I have 15 minutes. If I spend 5 minutes guessing on my lighting, that's 4.5 minutes wasted where I come in shooting. With this, bam, right away, I get it. And it just changes everything, So it's a huge deal, I feel, when you have real control over your light and have real control over every aspect of your image. I'll share again for 1 second here, because I want to go back into that for a moment. Let me get that together again, make sure I'm sharing correctly. Well, actually, no, I don't really need to share this at all, because I'm actually now at a place where we can just talk. So actually just stop that and go right back to just being with you guys. And I want to now open the door for questions. So one great thing about photography and learning lighting and learning how to use the tools and master the tools, it just opens up all these avenues for you to have a lot of fun with photography. And then also, it opens the door for you to stop, being just worried about the tech. And when you're worried about the tech, that's what you're thinking about as you're shooting. When you really want to put all your energy toward creating this mood inside of your shot. And that means your concentration goes to your client, making them relaxed, making them comfortable, and then concentrating on pulling out the image. So this also gives me confidence that I have everything where I want to be. Then I can stop thinking about the tech and think creatively. Think about how I can pull out the image, get an image that's going to be hopefully an iconic shot. If you're always thinking about the tech, oh, is my light right? Is that angle right? Is this right? That shows on your face. It shows you're thinking about the tech, and your client might feel, his face looks this way. Maybe they don't like me. Somebody says, what's my opinion of LCD versus incandescent light? What's the small RGB pocket lights commonly available today? Those are great. Those little pocket lights are wonderful. But when it comes to having real control of light, I do like the higher end lights. And this is one reason why. So one thing about the different tools I use, and I love that question, when it comes to the quality of light, it does change with certain types of lights. Those more inexpensive lights, they don't have that same control. I use not only a light meter, I use a color meter. And with a color meter, you find out the color range. You also find if this color rendering index, that tells you about every light and its ability to give you a full range of color. Some lights, the more inexpensive lights, they'll flicker and they're inexpensive, they're out there, but your range of color that you can get is like this. You can only tell that with a color meter, where the higher end lights will give you this range of lights, so you can get all these great colors. You're shooting for those lights and you're like, oh, my reds, my greens, my yellow, my colors don't look great. That's the light giving you a low rendering index, where the higher end lights give you a great rendering index. All the lights I use, they register high on that color rendering index. So that's probably one big difference in terms of the lower end lights and the higher end lights. I know Pro Photo is expensive. The light motion lights are probably not cheap either, but they're great lights and they last. I travel a lot. Well, I did before COVID anyway. And these lights take a lot of wear and tear, flying left and right everywhere and being on the road. They take a lot of pounding and they can last. Let me get to another question before we have to end our session here today. We're at the end. Somebody says, what did I use to emulate this end of the day light? So the end of the day light that I use a lot is these types of lights, this constant light. It's probably my favorite type of light. Well, it's hard to say favorite because I have so many favorites. I love my strobe, but I like this type of constant light. I use it a lot. I've got a couple types of constant lights here. This is another one. This one's strobe and constant. This is the reflex light by Light and Motion. I like that one a lot. I use my Pro Photo B1s, D2s. I use those a lot. Those are strobe lights. But for that end of the day light like the sun, this light I like a lot. That picture of Layla Ali, that was a hot light. It's tungsten based, and it is also a physically hot light, but I love that look of light as well. This one's more the correct color. You can put a gel on to make it more warmer or cooler or whatever you want, but I like this light a lot because it's not so hot. It's small, it's lightweight, and easy to travel with, so I like that a lot. I use it on location and outside at night as well. I like this. It's really powerful. I think we'll take one more question before we have to go here. Oh, do I use a light meter with constant light and with natural light? I do. So strobe light, I'll use it in the strobe mode. Thanks for that question. So I have a different mode for using strobe light. So I'll take my meter and set it to the strobe mode to read for strobe lights that's flashing. And then I'll change, like here I have, I'm sure you can see that well, it's in strobe mode now. I'll change that and put it in the ambient mode so I can just read, my constant light. So the light that stays on, I'll read it also for a constant light. So both situations, I want to know the light, whether it's a strobe light, whether it's a constant light, whether I'm dragging my shutter. I want it, if I'm using I use RE Sky panels. So those are higher end LED lights. I use this as well to find out the light in every situation. I want to know the light no matter where I am, whether I'm shooting natural light, constant light, strobe light, every situation, I'm using that tool. Super important for me all the time to have that versus my in-camera meter, which can throw you off and not give you the exact information you need. Now in studio, I can't use my meter in the camera at all. I have to use this type of meter to read the strobe light. This baby is fantastic. Let's see. I said, do I ever do workshops? Yeah, all the time. Of course, a lot of this is online these days. But for the most part, I've been doing a lot of stuff online. I love doing stuff like this. I'm so happy to be part of this conference now and be able to share with you guys all this stuff. It's fun for me. I'm gonna share my screen for one fast second at the very end so I can just go through again and make sure you guys have all this information to go full screen here. There we are. So again, just playing around with this at night, last night was so much fun. I love photography. It never gets old. I'm always experimenting. You guys should too. So how do you practice all this? Start getting in front of people, start looking at light, start with natural light, understand natural light, what it looks like when it's really, really beautiful. Play around and have fun. This is one light in studio. This is shot for the Nikon campaign recently. Have fun with one light. Just play around. This is strobe light, and I'm having fun with one super simple light. Fun stuff, but get in there and experiment. Get in there with your light meter. Understand your light, how it works. The absence of light is super important all the time as well. Have fun.